Hey yo, this is the Corner of the Circle. Nice little podcast with me, your host, LS McLean. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a nosy person. People are nosy. They want to know stories. They want to know what's going on in other people's lives. And yo, I am absolutely no exception. So sit back, relax, and let's just chill for a little bit. This is the Corner of the Circle. Okay, we're on. We are live. Very, very special episode of Corner of the Circle. I mean, many of you guys have already, you've heard the voice, you've seen the face of Dr. Chris Hunt, who just, he's on the front lines doing the good stuff. He's as we talked about before, he's one of my main inspirations when I got into the powerlifting game. Super strong guy, an even nicer guy than he is a strong guy. Awesome husband, awesome dad with just a new addition. Here of Lace. Congratulations for that, brother. I'm super excited. I'm hoping that maybe LS is thrown in there somewhere in the names, but I doubt that's gonna happen. But it is what it is.
Ed Cohen just tried to throw his name in the hat too for that too.
I'm just saying.
I advised him head would be too large to come out of the birthing canal. That might be a problem. So.
Well, well, I guess I'll take a backseat to Ed for now. And we also have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Donovan Thompson. Again on the front lines. Another amazing medical doctor who happens to be very, very strong. He's your favorite doctor's favorite doctor. He is multi-record holding husband to one of the goats of powerlifting, father to two future goats of powerlifting, and honestly, one of the most organized, one of the most amazing, one of the most straightforward men you will ever meet. That again, he will lift you under the table and then he'll make you like it afterwards. Donovan, I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for being on this. Both of you fellas, I honestly, like I said, I'm super humbled for this opportunity to be able to get some more information out to the people. I think people have come to know if Chris's face shows up, then they're about to get their minds blown with facts and actual data that's useful and that's cited and that's true, not just hearsay. So to have Donovan, to have you on here, I feel like we're about to get a double barrel of some great stuff. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the coronavirus / COVID-19 in all the dealings, as much of the dealings as we can. I want to thank you, Chris, for really reaching out to get this thing started, because honestly, it wouldn't have happened without your suggestion. So again, I appreciate you for that. For those of the people that do live under a rock, kind of give people a rundown of who you are and kind of what you're doing in terms of this whole virus and everything, sir.
Yeah, so I'm Chris Hunt. I'm an ER doc. I've been out of residency for about 9 years. And I did my residency actually in New York City. So I still got a lot of contacts in New York and been pondering going back quite a bit, to be honest with you, because some of my residency classmates are going back to New York to pitch in. Yeah. So yeah, I'm one of the frontline docs right now for this thing, as is Donovan. That's why I reached out to him, because Donovan's an even more seasoned doc. My understanding is you're still a medical director, right?
I'm the medical director, of an ER in Charlotte, and I'm a little farther along than Chris. I got out of residency 22 years ago, and I trained in downtown Detroit, so all of my past classmates who stayed and my attendings are getting hit with the frontline stuff like New York right now.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah. So yeah, basically both of us are kind of getting pulled to maybe consider going back. I don't know if you're feeling that you're a medical director. Probably gonna
my every day is every day, 2-3 Zoom meetings and trying to figure out where we're gonna put our makeshift morgues, and we have tents in our parking lot to see patients, and fortunately so far we haven't seen the rush yet, but we don't, looking at New York and now Chicago, Detroit, New Orleans, it's only a matter of time, we think, although we were one of the first states that did all the social quarantining. We were the second school system in the country to close. So
right.
That's smart.
We did it early enough.
Yeah, that was smart. Yeah, I was So it's funny because the Arnold, right? So USAPL got hit with that.
Right.
So I remember thinking, man, this isn't going to be that bad. And I think I posted something on Facebook like, I think this is a bad decision. And it was, maybe it was the right decision.
Yeah.
And turns out it was the right decision, because if you look at the numbers in Ohio right now of infected and death rate, Ohio's numbers are actually down.
Right.
So Ohio's governor had some pretty good insight on that. And then if you look at Louisiana's numbers right now, because Mardi Gras and Arnold are almost always like
almost almost same time, yeah.
And it was like a few days later for Mardi Gras, I think, and they didn't shut down Mardi Gras. And if you look at Louisiana's numbers, it's like
it's exploded.
So, the Ohio governor made a good call. I guess the long and short of it.
Yeah, that was my discussion with Chris. I'm like, you put 100,000 people in a building. The athletes are a little different. You put them in one convention hall with one circulating system, all touching each other, and then put them back to the internet, major disaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Retrospectively, that would have been a disaster.
Yeah,
it would have been.
But it's funny because, like, before it hits, if you're making these calls, like, shutting down the Arnold, it's like, why would you shut down the Arnold?
Right.
Like, and so the governor looks like this kind of fringe weirdo, and it's like, but anyway, so he ended up making the right call. But the retrospectoscope, who knows how that's ever going to go? It's Monday morning quarterbacking, right?
Right.
And it's funny because Dom and I live in a world of Monday morning quarterbacking, right? Because all the decisions that we make are like the here and now, have to make a call. And then if it goes wrong, then everybody has a bunch of time to Monday morning quarterback it.
Oh, yeah.
And that happens. That's happened a few times in my career. I'm sure that's happened in your career too. Being a director to deal with what happened to your other docs, I'm sure. So, and it's tough. It's, because we live in the world of the here and now, and then we get to hear about the retrospectoscope later via email and the please help me understand. But so I get kind of the tough decision that the governor had to make. I mean, it's a much larger scale than we had to deal with.
Without a doubt. The thing that I noticed, as especially with being an athlete at the Arnold, was, I mean, there was it was like almost like a 50-50. I want to say kind of like kind of a 50-50 feel, like once it was all said and done, because like you're thinking to yourself like, well, why are we not competing? Number one, and then like, oh, well, we're going to compete. Okay, well, why can't my people be there? Oh, okay, they can. But well, why can't people be there? But then like when you actually sit, I mean, and I think again, it's good to be on a conversation like this, because now that having you two here, it's more of an opportunity for me to kind of understand from the outside looking in. Looking back on it, like you said, Chris, it was the best decision. I mean, and again, it's not one of those that at the time you don't necessarily know if it's the best or the worst decision. But I mean, I think from anyone's perspective, and you don't necessarily have to be, in a higher position. Like at the end of the day, it's about keeping people safe, and it's almost on that lines of better safe than sorry. Would you rather lose money, or would you rather risk the potential of losing human lives? And I think for a lot of us, I mean, again, as an athlete, you're so one-sided, you're so just blinded by your own want and will to compete. You forget just the basic things of, hey, how about I stay safe, and of course you start thinking about the dollars and cents that you spent to get there. And again, it's a very selfish feeling, when you're thinking about why are we not competing? Why can't my people watch me compete? But at the end of the day, it's a competition that can, it can be postponed and or, redone at some other time. But when not given that opportunity at the time, you're like, wait, but why are we not, you're just thinking of what you don't have rather than the potential of what could happen. And so to have that foresight of what could have happened, I mean, it turned out to be a good decision. And honestly, it's, in my opinion, it's almost I almost feel like it's a win-win, because had you in any big situation like that, I mean, if it were a Mardi Gras or the Arnold, when you have 100,000 plus people, packed on top of each other in any form or fashion, there's a chance for something to go wrong. So I mean, again, there is lost money, and I get that, but if like let's say that it didn't go crazy, that the that this virus didn't go as crazy as it has in recent months, you know you would have got maybe a few slaps on the wrist. But I think at the end of the day, if people's safety is what's being taken in consideration, I don't know that you can really criticize a man for doing that. So again, that's for my outside
Yeah.
looking in.
Well, I guess the best analogy that I could give to an athlete is, it's like feeling the early beginnings of an injury, right?
Right.
So, do you make a call and not do the meet, and not do the competition?
Right.
Or do you just push through it and do the competition you've been training for, and then risk
your hamstring, right, Chris?
Oh man, that was such a bad call. Oh, okay, so it was actually 4 years ago now at the Arnold. It was like I was looking at trying to set the world record squat, and I was like, I had this one goal. It was like I was going to set the IPF world record squat. It was going to happen. It was going to happen because it was my second shot at it, and it was like, man, I'm going to beat Lane Norton's record. I'm going to do it. And training for months and months, and then I hit it in the gym. I actually hit a little bit more in the gym. It was high, but I was like, oh, I can get it to depth in competition. It'll be fine. So I come to the Arnold like a week and a half before. I had a super rough workout, and my coach Mike T had me doing knee wrap squats after heavy deadlifts, and I felt my adductor go. It was like I came up with it on my heaviest set, and I was like, felt this in my groin.
Oh no!
Bruising, like had to bail the weight. And I was like, oh man, well, this is pretty bad because I had instant bruising. I was like, but man, I've been training for this for months. I'm just gonna still do the meet. I'm gonna do the meet. Let's see what happens. Yeah. No, it was a bad call because I turned a partial tear into a full thickness adductor tear. I mean, it was bad news bears. But I remember Donovan coming up to me after I did it, and he was like, I mean, that's pretty bad. You probably shouldn't deadlift. It's like, yeah, you're probably right. So I took a token deadlift after I benched. But
oh man,
I think that, to your point, Chris, that's exactly the same thing. You were making decisions, based on what you wanted, not what was the best decision. A lot of the decisions that have been made in this COVID stuff has been about money. Mardi Gras, don't shut it down. It's about they went to deeper on occupancy instead of just closing the thing. They still had their big Mardi Gras parades. The places that seemed to have shut down completely and early did the right thing. It was Monday after the Arnold at my son's baseball game with all of the middle school parents, and they said, what do you think of this? And I said, it's doubling every week, and we're at 100,000 cases worldwide. We're going to be at 1 million in a month. If you just do the doubling, it's going to be 1 million in a month. And just like your 401k account, when you start doubling millions instead of thousands, it's real money. And they're like, I just don't get it. I said, just watch the doubling and see what happens. And if we're not making people mad by stopping things early, we did the wrong thing. And you can look, the towns or the states that made people mad and said we're stopping are doing better than the ones that didn't.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I've started to kind of look, I mean, because I think at this point you can't be a breathing human being with any type of internet access and not start looking at the numbers. It just is what it is. If you're not, if you're not, you might want to start. Just trying to look at a few of the numbers. And I mean, and of course, nationwide, you guys are right. There's countless states that that did get ahead of it. Countless counties that got ahead of it. And as a result, their numbers are a lot lower than those that decided not to. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is you have to have You just have to have people that are willing to adhere to the rules, and that in itself is a hard thing. I mean, and again, I mean, and it's not necessarily you get what you deserve, but it's definitely one of those things where I mean, you can't have a governor slash mayor slash county commissioner, whomever, saying, hey, we're going under quarantine, we're gonna start the proverbial lockdown. People stay home, practice your social distancing, be smart, sanitize, all that good stuff. And you are having quarantine parties and having, block parties, like not even hours after this stuff has been announced. And then, you turn around, and not even 2 weeks post these parties, I mean, a lot of these New Yorkers, I can say, have had, I mean, and look where New York is at right now. There's a lot of, and the thing is, you don't necessarily have to be, you didn't necessarily have to be one of those people that attended one of those parties, but but you're still going to.
You get the effect of it anyway.
Exactly.
You can count on those people.
I mean,
well, part of this is a cultural thing for Americans, right?
Yes.
Americans have this sense of rugged individualism. That's what our country was built on, right?
Right.
But if you look at the Asian countries, so that have a sense of like compliance, like that's built into their culture.
Yes,
right?
without a doubt. Yes.
So rule compliance. So if you look at Japan's numbers right now, Taiwan's numbers right now, South Korea's numbers right now, I would say push aside China's numbers, because I'm pretty sure part of it's lying.
That's skewed
because
completely.
However, if you look at people that, or the countries that are probably not lying, like Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea, their numbers are way down because culturally they value following rules.
Right.
Right. So Americans are all about, well, I want to do what I want to do.
Right.
And I mean, so like I said, part of that is relying on yourself, and that's what makes our country great. But right now, we're in a time where rule following might be the most important thing to do.
Exactly.
Because I mean, literally, it's keeping other countries' death counts and case counts down.
Right.
So,
Chris, tell them what your friend in Jersey said about the semi trucks.
Yeah,
that's a real feeling.
So, a buddy of mine who I did residency with, who was chief resident when I was chief resident at the same time, James Hakeem, shout out to him. He's in Jersey right now, not too far outside of New York, and he's got an 18-wheeler out back because their hospital morgue is overflowing.
Get out of
the 18. Yeah. So in their 18-wheeler, pretty much at all times now, he said they got bodies filled up front to back, not only front to back, but 3 high, stacked up 3 high. So at all times.
That's insanity.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary. I mean, it's very somber.
Right.
But I mean, and to that point, Donovan and I were just texting. So people are saying, oh, this is no worse than the flu. Oh, the survival rate is 98 or 97%. That's a little skewed because I know in the state of Indiana, I think we met the total death count that we had for the last season. So we equaled that for COVID deaths in a matter of 2 weeks.
Sheesh. I mean,
so
I just my dad and I, we talk a lot about just a lot of stuff, but I mean we were kind of talking about it. Actually, my at the beginning, I mean he made it make a lot more sense to me, because I mean it's not that I take things lightly. It's just for me and a lot of people, it's just what, if I do my part, if I stay away, if I keep myself clean, I'll be good to go. So will that 97%, will that affect me? I don't know, yes or no. So my dad's like, well, you got to think about this. If you have 100 pieces of candy, because I know you like your candy, but yes, I love my candy. He's like, if you have 100 pieces of candy on the floor, shit on the table, and 3 of those pieces of candy that you don't know can kill you, would you still eat the candy? I'm like, well,
right.
You know what I mean? He's like, so you don't necessarily know, you don't necessarily know which one is which. Do you know that you're not going to eat that piece of candy? You could be that piece of candy that dies. You don't know. So I mean, it's simple. As he made it sound. I don't like those odds. I don't like, I mean, if it's not a complete 100%, like 100% survival rate, then, I mean, there is no guarantee that that anyone's going to make it through this. Any and everyone's going to make it through this. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and I hope and pray that obviously that it continues. The rate starts to drop, continues to drop, and we do get to a point where it's everyone can survive from this, and maybe that some vaccine of some sort can be found, and we can get back to life. But the thing is, if and when this is all said and done, normal life will be different. You know what I mean? As it should be.
Oh,
As it should be. I mean, it's I don't know that there's at least in my lifetime that I've ever seen anything like this, that I've ever seen people with like immediate fear like this. And I mean, maybe it takes a little bit of scaring to kind of shift the thing. I mean, I feel like for any type of for anything to really evolve into something better, you have to have something that kind of shakes it up. And I feel like this is the ultimate shakeup. I think I've said it before. This could be our finest hour. You know what I mean? This could be one of the finest hour for us as humans within our lifetime to actually do something to help each other, to be selfless, and to change our ways for the better. But at the same time, you see a lot of selfishness still going on. You still see a lot of hoarding happening.
Yeah. I mean, I've had folks come in telling me they had a first birthday party for their kid, and they still had their Mima and Papa over, and then their kid spikes a fever the next day. Yeah, and I've had folks telling me that, well, we see all kinds of funny stuff in the ER, but patients coming in for illicit drug side effects because they had a party the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, come on. One of the times, if you're going to do your illicit drugs alone at home, I guess, but like also having a party on top of that, come on.
Like I read a couple of articles, two separate articles, in both of which refer to these two. One, it was a young man. One was a young man. Other one was a young woman, and they both got coronavirus from going to corona parties, where apparently if you or one of your friends is diagnosed with corona, they throw a party. Like what? I didn't even think that was like.
Well, so that dates back to chickenpox parties. So it was a thing. I don't know if you experienced this, Donovan, when you were growing up.
I went to one of those parties when I was 5.
There you go.
The kid was sick. Like, why am I doing this? But my dad's like, all you and your brothers sisters are getting it all at the same time, and we're going to be done with it. And that because there was no immunizations back then.
Okay.
So that's what it dates back to. So there was actually more logic behind that, though, because if you get chickenpox as an adult, it's much more lethal.
True.
If you get it as a kid, it's usually much more benign.
Mm-hmm.
So all the adults had already had it around you.
Right. So the logic was you have the kid get over it, so they don't die as an adult if they get it as an adult. Mm-hmm. Because usually what happens with chickenpox is if you get it as a kid, you get a rash, you maybe get a fever,
right,
and then week 2 you're back. If you get it as an adult, you can get pneumonia and die from it, meningitis and die from it. So it's much worse if you get them as an adult. Ooh. So that was the logic behind those. That notion has kind of gotten pushed onto this idea of the coronavirus. The problem is that there's not a lot of logic behind that one.
Right.
Because if you look at the death rates, people that are elderly are the most likely to die, but also people that, have immunocompromised like HIV or cancer, or if they have lupus or stuff like that. But the problem is also that there's just kind of random young people that also die from it.
True story.
So there's no way to know if you're going to be okay or not.
Well,
so we've been talking about and it's everywhere right now,
right.
flattening the curve, right? So everybody knows the idea of flattening the curve. That's why we're doing this.
Right.
And it's so that cases kind of trickle in, and we don't mess up our medical supply. We don't mess up, how many ICU beds we have,
right.
and we can keep everybody within that threshold.
Right.
And so in Indiana, we're not going to get above that threshold. So that's good. I don't know what your situation is in Charlotte. You guys are probably okay too.
We seem to be getting better. Yeah, we were predicted to be over, but now we're predicted to be under. So, but that's because we've done this for well over a month now,
right.
social distancing in our state.
Yeah, so we're predicted to be okay too. So New York has already exceeded their capacity. And so the thing about the United States, I think, is, if it's like peeing in a swimming pool, right? So we have open borders within the United States. And, there's not people really sitting at checkpoints, across the U.S. or
right.
cops sitting at checkpoints.
Yeah, there's like no major enforcements for borders or anything.
Yeah. So if one state doesn't get it right, it's basically like peeing in a swimming pool. The pee still goes all over the pool.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess where I'm going with that is the best that we can do now is to still continue the social distancing stuff, still continue doing, the measures that we're doing. Because really, once the mortality, kind of getting back to the mortality rate, once we occupy ICU beds with all these elderly memas and papas, right? And they start to die, then we don't have the space for the younger folks to occupy the ventilator machines,
True story.
the ICU beds. And so then what happens is the younger folks start to die off too. And so
right.
that's a really bad thing, obviously. That nobody wants that.
So I mean, so it almost serves like as a bit of bottlenecking after a while. That's
Yes.
And so and now we're
it's not a very big bottle either.
Yeah.
Like, people think, America's huge. There's 100,000 ICU beds in the country.
That's a lot.
100,000
what?
In
Wait.
the entire country.
That's just
8 billion people.
So, oh my God, I never knew that.
It's a tight bottle.
Yeah.
There's only 100,000 ICU beds in the country.
Yes.
And any one day, I would give that half of them are probably being used, right, Chris? I mean, that's probably your census in your ICU is about half full.
Oh man,
usually
in a busy flu season, I don't know about you, but like, are you at a tertiary care facility? Are you at
all different? We have 10 sites.
So that's right.
So,
yeah, you're kind of like me. You go to different hospitals. So
yep.
I go to 7 different hospitals. So we have like a mothership.
Oh my gosh.
Is Obama. So it's kind of a major receiving hospital for a lot of stuff. And so, when you're out at these smaller hospitals and you have like a super sick patient and it exceeds the capacity of that smaller hospital, then you have to call to get that patient transferred to the mothership. Okay. And because sometimes at these small hospitals, there's no ICU beds. So you got to get them transferred to the mothership for an ICU bed.
Right.
And, in a busy flu season, sometimes there's not an ICU bed that'll open up if you're on an overnight until the morning. Like, they're already full. And that's just a flu season. So, we're talking about now this thing. And it's like, if we exceed that and then go well beyond that, then you're talking about boarding a bunch of critically ill coronavirus patients in the emergency department on top of who's coming in the front door. And so that just becomes problem on top of problem on top of problem, right? Because if you're doing hallway beds, if you have the critically ill coronavirus patients that are actually in ER rooms, and then you have the people that are coming in the front door with coronavirus symptoms that you're putting them in hallway beds, exposing everybody
Oh.
to coronavirus soup. It's just, it becomes kind of madness. So that's the scenario that that the social distancing stuff and the stay-at-home orders are trying to avoid.
So that's just,
Right.
I mean, that's, oh my gosh. And for, you know what, and for people like myself that thought, like, you know, well, every hospital's got to have at least 200 or 300. I mean, because I'm not lying. In my head, I'm like, you know, I just always assumed that it was like what you see on TV, you know, like, oh, each hospital has to have at least, you know, 40, 50, you know, maybe 100, you know, ER beds. I mean, and there's thousands of hospitals across. I had no clue that there was, like, you know, 100,000. That's it. I mean, and we have what, over, well, I think we're at like what, three, what are we, 300? I don't know how many million we're at.
I think roughly
How many?
350 million.
Yeah, 350 million.
Yeah.
So in the
So
state of Washington, where this hit first, everyone's like, "Oh, what's the big deal?" There's, you know, all these. There's only 3,000 total hospital beds in the state of Washington. 3,000 beds.
What?
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's hospitals with like 4 beds in the whole hospital.
That's
And so I think people think we're this grand, massive country, and so we just got like, you know, resources that we can just burn, and they're just not there. Not on the medical side, that's for sure.
yeah, because as of right now, we are at, according to the world meter population, we're at 331 million right now,
There you go.
and we have 100,000 beds to spare. And honestly, like, to be honest, what, maybe 40,000, to be honest, you know, maybe 40,000 are actually not used right now. Well, I don't know. It could be less. And so, that's so. I mean, so you're playing. I mean, it's like it's like you're juggling. It's you're literally throwing. You know, you're throwing buckshot at a target, hoping to hit it. Like, it's that's just, I don't, man. Like, it's just.
Well, then you have to start making decisions like they made in Italy. You're too old. You don't deserve a ventilator. When do you start making those decisions? Oh, you're already too sick. You're a smoker and had a heart attack once. You don't get a vent. We're going to give it to this young guy. And so it's like, we all trained in emergency medicine doing disaster medicine, where you literally walk around with black tags, like in a war scenario, and tag the body with a black tag that you don't think you can save, even though they're alive. So why waste your resources?
Oh my God.
And every time we did this, and I'm sure Chris will say the same thing, you're like, yeah, I'm never going to have to make this.
Oh my God.
In some countries, they're making that decision. They're literally black tagging people.
Like, man, you know, and it's like, you know what? I mean, you can't. I mean, I personally could not imagine having to make that decision. I mean, but, you know, I mean, has it? I mean, I know it's happened in Europe. I mean, in some places. I mean, in, say, New York, have we gotten to that point yet, or is everybody still being given a chance?
Yeah. So good question. So like I said, I did residency in New York, and one of the hospitals I went to for many months was Elmhurst Hospital. You can read about Elmhurst Hospital right now because it's like ground zero for this thing. So their situation is pretty dire, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Elmhurst Hospital is in Queens, and kind of the living situation in Queens, how people live is, you know, it's heavy immigrant populations where people are living in very cramped quarters, in low income housing.
Right.
You know, Queens Avenue is the second most dangerous street in America.
Right.
So, you know, they would have a lot of gang wars and stuff on a normal day that we would get several trauma patients all at once. So on a normal day, I remember in Elmhurst, there's not a lot of hospital or ER rooms. On a normal day, it's mostly hallway medicine. There's stretchers lined up, separated by curtains. You were lucky to have a curtain on either side of you.
Right.
If you were a patient. Normally there would be, you know, 3 beds per 2 curtain space.
Right.
So imagine that in a pandemic where it's spread by air, right?
Sheesh.
Didn't have coronavirus, go to a patient. Well, you got coronavirus when you left, you know. And I'm sure that's what they're experiencing right now.
Right.
So as far as the bed situation there, I I couldn't quote anything exact. I mean, but I can tell you that some of my friends that have gone back from other places in the country that are trying to devote some shifts up there in New York now, they're saying that, like, I know one guy that's in the Bronx right now said, we're probably good on docks right now.
Mm-hmm.
What the rate limiter is now is we're boarding ICU patients in the emergency department, and they're vented. They're there for days in the emergency department. So it's kind of that nightmare scenario that I was talking about earlier. Is now you have vented, intubated, life support, coronavirus
Right.
patients are lining up in the ER, and now you got people still coming in the floor.
That's
So
crazy, man.
not the doctors. I don't know about the nurses, but the limiter is not wasn't him at the hospital he was at. But the limiter was the physical space and the ventilator machines. I don't know. Are you on EM Docs on Facebook, Donovan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there was one person talking about, I think it was in Louisiana, how they had a bad day in a community hospital where they had to get a housekeeper to bag a patient, to breathe for them because they ran out of ventilators. There were no nurses available, so they had to get a janitor to bag somebody for them.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah, my chief resident, so she stayed on and stayed as an attending at the ER that I graduated from in Detroit, and I just texted her the other day, and she said that, because and my buddies were like, well, GM and all the car could be good.
Mm-hmm.
So she told me that they have 10 ventilator patients for every one nurse taking care of them in the emergency department. The ICUs are full. So one nurse is trying to take care of 10 ventilator patients at a time. So you can make more ventilators, but there's not a resource to man those ventilators.
Oh my gosh. So I mean, at this point, not only obviously, in terms of just resources, the biggest thing it's starting to be needed is the actual human resource. Actually, needing people, needing bodies to help bodies. It's a little bit. It's. I can't say it's a little bit of both, but it's definitely both. Yeah. Because even if you have the materials, even if you have the needed materials, it's having you need people to help. It's just
and it seems to be the organization. I don't want to criticize any administration, but I think that needs to be being up those resources, because like I said, so Donovan said that there's not enough nurses to go around at this hospital, and then and in New York where my buddy is, they've got enough docs, they just don't have enough vents and beds.
Right.
So really kind of more higher level organization that probably should come up.
Yeah, that's what
to figure out where those resources need to go, because if you're out of vents at one place and you're out of docs at another, that would be useful. I know the mayor of New York was talking about getting a national registry for physicians. I don't know if that would work out, but because that becomes kind of like a military draft almost, and then you're asking civilians to be drafted to other locations that have already a contract with
right.
a private hospital or a private physician group. It's really complicated.
Yeah. Well,
we're like one country of a bunch of small countries all fighting for the same resource.
Yeah.
And so we're like, we have to think of ourselves more like we're Europe, and Indiana's one country and North Carolina's one country. Now they're bidding against each other for these resources, and that's not helping any of us.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy.
Well, here's a question, because again, you guys would know more than I do, especially on this subject. But kind of along the lines of what you were saying, Chris, about possibly having something organized at a higher level. Is there not some type of maybe not registry, but some type of form of communication to where as many medical professionals as possible can not even like a Facebook group or anything like that, but something obviously far more formal, to where if you're able to volunteer your time and or services or your materials, or you're able to divvy out these materials, or where it's I don't know if it could be flat across the board, but something along the lines of, you have your top tier of doctors, and then you'll have the next tier of nurses, and you'll have the next tier of medical supply companies or whatever, where you can all go to some centralized, I don't know. I guess it would have to be something along the internet or some centralized location to where you have your number of people, what their specialty is, your number of beds, your number of ventilators, whatever. Where like almost a full inventory of people and materials can be kind of taken. Like, hey, in Detroit we are in need of, we're in need of up to 60 nurses and 20 doctors. If you're able to come, blah blah blah, let us know here, yada yada yada, and then it takes those people off, and then is that a possibility? Is that able to be done? Is that being done? I should say, it's
not being done. I know statewide, Indiana's got a mechanism in place that had an email out for like a registry to ask people, would you be willing to go and do X, Y, Z,
right,
and what's your specialty? And
right.
So our individual state did that.
Right.
I don't know did you guys do that?
I think one of the things to Ellis's point is, first of all, like just emergency medicine, and I know that well because I hire that. We don't have enough emergency medicine doctors on a regular day across our country. Like we have a shortage of surgeons and ER docs across the country.
Right.
Number one. Number two is, until this happened, my North Carolina license could only work in North Carolina. I couldn't go to another state and practice medicine.
True story.
Yeah.
Until Trump said state line will be this pandemic, there was no ability for me to go help in Indiana. I didn't have a medical license in Indiana.
Yeah.
And so that's, I can go within, and then even within your state, yes, but I have to have credentials at that hospital in that state.
Oh my gosh.
And that takes months of time and effort and finances to get done. And so, there isn't that mechanism really where you can just, the government made it better where you can just say, you can go anywhere. And now these hospitals that are in need can quick credential you. So I don't think, to answer your question, is there is no mechanism, not even really within our states until this happened, which for 22 years I've been saying the flu is terrible every year. We're not prepared for it every year. We need to be prepared for this every year. And every year they're like, well, it's over. Summer came. We'll worry about it next year. And then now.
And so, and I'm sure there's a lot of doctors, in the same boat with you that echo exactly how you feel in terms of the flu, because it seems like it gets worse and worse every year. And I just feel like anything that can have mass fatalities at any point in time in the year, especially during a specific season, it's something that obviously should be, looked at, something that should be, treated with, a bit more priority. And kind of how we talked about in the beginning, this, once this is all said and done and we go back to life, it won't be the same life we went back to. And a lot of things that we took for granted, i.e. the flu, and really not making it a priority in terms of having something in place to really, prioritize the treatment and really how serious it's taken. I believe that's going to be. I believe a lot of, at least in my opinion, I believe a lot of sicknesses and diseases that we maybe tended to overlook prior to this. I think a lot of them are going to go. At least in my opinion, I feel like a lot of the people may go back and revisit a lot of these to see, the root of a lot of stuff, and to see if there's a chance for these strains to mutate and do. And kind of do like this coronavirus did. I mean, because all I ever knew of it was, hey, this is just a more aggressive strain of flu. Okay, you feel that? Whew. That's break time. I get tired of listening for too long. So, let's chill for a little bit. Quick little break. Stretch your legs. Get something to drink. And then mosey right back. And let's listen up to The Corner of the Circle. Let's get started with the next part. And And the thing is,
coronavirus is the common cold usually.
yeah, yeah. So
Usually causes the common cold.
yeah, so I just
Coronavirus are the two most common culprits for the cold.
that's crazy, and
Yeah, it's totally mutated.
that's insane. You know, I mean, and so for you guys right now, like you had said, Chris, you're a bit torn right now, trying to decide whether or not you know whether or not you want to get back out to New York, you know and I mean and help.
Yeah, yeah. And then the question becomes: if I leave my home base, then am I screwing over my buddies at home
Mm-hmm.
when something spikes here? And then of course my wife is pregnant now. So
Yeah. It's honestly,
becomes a
right.
question, right? What a mess, right?
It's
It's leaving me irrationally terrified a little bit, but um, so God bless my residency classmates that have gone back
right.
and have been, but um, it's yeah, this has really exposed a lot of weak links in our system
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I lucky state
Uh-huh.
that has got it together, especially at hospitals that have definitely got it together and it did a lot of planning. Our administration is actually very good. Some other locations have not been so lucky, but Donovan, I know he's like he said, he's been involved with this at the administrative level and been doing a lot of planning. And
Uh-huh.
for the administrators right now in individual hospitals, I mean they're working every day,
Yeah,
even
that
on
was
their non-clinical days, constantly nonstop on trying to figure out how to stay ahead of this thing. One of our administrators at our hospitals actually looked into because he recognized there was a national shortage of
uh-huh.
protective equipment. So he looked into how can I help my doctors, and there was a doctor in Taiwan that came up with a design for um, just a glass, basically box to
Uh-huh.
sit over a patient before you intubate them. Because basically, what an intubation is you taking a tube and
Mm-hmm.
putting it in somebody's airway to
Right.
breathe for them. They can't breathe for themselves anymore.
Right.
That's like the only procedure that we can do when somebody gets bad enough from COVID
Right.
as a last-ditch effort to save them. And so then they are then on the ventilator machine. Well, if you're intubating somebody, obviously you're right in their face with their mouth right in front of you. And say if they cough while they're going out,
Right.
while you're or something, all of their airway stuff goes in your face.
Exactly.
Major exposure. And so administrator helped push to get these made for us, and actually got them for several of our hospitals that he's not even affiliated with. So like I said, I'm pretty lucky to
Yeah.
administrators and good leadership. Got help hook up Donovan with the specs for that too. And you guys have those intubation boxes too, right?
Yeah, you sent it to us, and I work for a group, U.S. Acute Care, which is like 100 hospitals across the country and
Right.
10 just in Charlotte. And so we needed, one for each ER. Anesthesia was already starting on board, and one of our docs knew someone from Roush Racing,
Uh-huh.
went over there with Chris's specs, and they made us that day.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
We just walked away with them and had them.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
So I mean, people are coming together, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's good news in this. I think and the numbers are looking good.
Yeah.
We've been talking like doom and gloom and stuff, but I think so for a lot of states, the social distancing is helping.
Mm-hmm.
New York's pretty bad right now, but I think they've already peaked.
Yeah.
So it's not totally doom and gloom. My concern is you can't escape the economic problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Been with this,
Right.
right? Because that creates other problems too, right?
Right.
So poverty, domestic violence,
Right.
suicidal, suicides, right? So so it's become a big jumbled mess.
Right.
The other thing that I know Donovan and I are both experiencing right now is the number of acute heart attacks that we've had come in our front doors is down by about 50%, which people don't stop having heart attacks.
Right.
So they're just not coming in. So another downstream effect has been that the number of people that are getting called as dead on arrival in the field by medics has gone up times 3. So people aren't coming in for other routine emergencies, right? I've had patients that have come in hours delayed where they normally can
Right. Oh man.
So people need to, it's becoming this weird jumbled mess of stuff. So people need to still try to come in if they're feeling, like they have severe chest pain,
Right.
stroke-like symptoms, and people aren't doing it because they're afraid of acquiring coronavirus.
Right.
You can't, drag one for the other.
Right.
If you're having a heart attack, you can still die of a heart attack.
True story.
Right.
So that's my bigger concern is once we open this up and we open up the stay-at-home orders, we're gonna have a second wave of real emergencies that have been sitting.
Oh, without a doubt.
Very bad. And so people still need to be seeking medical care for their normal stuff. They have really bad belly pain. What is this? I have really bad chest pain. What is this? Because people can't be counted on to know if they're having a heart attack.
Oh, without a doubt.
I can't even be counted on to know if they're having a heart attack unless I get an EKG and tests and a bunch of stuff, right? That's how doctoring kind of works, right? So they just need to come in and get checked out, but they're just not doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is just, again, some people are following and some people just fear, fear is, I'm telling you, man, fear is, you guys know, you see it probably on a daily basis. Fear is such a, it's such a motivator either to go or stay. And most people at this particular point in time, there's just enough fear in the air with everything going on right now fear will make you freeze, whatever it is. And if you do have like a pre-existing medical condition, for fear of amplifying that, adding something else to that, you won't show up, you won't go. I've seen it a lot. African American, man, and our community going to the hospital is, it's almost like admitting death. You know what I mean? At some point, and so you have a lot of men and women in the African American community that we just will not go to the hospital. We just will not go to a doctor. And so you see that a lot. That was happening already. Now you add to this, the whole COVID-19, and that's just going to increase the lack of participation, on an exponential level. And so you tend to see that not happening a lot more, especially now. I'm glad you pointed that out because for me personally, it's a scary thing. Period. It's a scary thing. Period to be going through a time like this. But when you see people, not necessarily dying right and left, but people are dying right and left from COVID-19, from complications as a result. And I think the thing that makes it more real for people that aren't, in the front lines like yourself, is the fact that you are seeing, celebrities, and you are seeing people that, and people that somehow you're related to or indirectly related to, getting this and being affected by it. So
leaders, the Prime Minister of the UK got it. He almost died.
Yeah. So it's it's in your face. It's probably the most in your face, disease that we've seen in quite some time. And it's and when there's doesn't seem to be like an end in sight, it doesn't necessarily help that fear factor in any form or fashion. So, you can see the numbers, and like you said, you see that, in a lot of states and a lot of areas that did practice the social distancing successfully, or continuing, I should say, to practice social distancing successfully. You see the numbers are they're kind of going down, and as much as as much as I want to, use the Chinese numbers as an indicator, like, hey, this is a possibility that, we have a shot. You can't necessarily trust those numbers 100%. It's just, it's decisions are having to be made. They're having to be made on, on every level. Donovan, this is really directed to you. Right now, I mean, as far as some of the decisions that you're having to make, I mean, and you don't necessarily have to go into crazy detail. I mean, is it just one of those things where every day you're like, oh man, I can't believe I'm having to make this decision, or I can't believe I'm having to, decide these resources go here and there. I mean, is it just a constant, a kind of a constant mental beating that, not necessarily a mental beating that you're taking, but a constant, I'm having to be on my toes on a daily basis. Like, is there, no end in sight? I mean, what's really having to going on with you?
Yeah, I mean, so I get it from two sides. So, I have the administrative side. I also work clinically.
Right.
So I'm waiting for like the bubble to break where we go from, we cut a doctor shift out of our schedule because people aren't coming as much to the hospital. And so we're all waiting for, then we're going to be there 24 hours a day.
Right.
And this isn't, we're trying to just, like Chris was alluding to, we have to open up the economics at some point, and we're going to know people that died from this. So I have that side of it. Then I also have a 16-year-old with a new car who doesn't know what to do with himself because he's got, ice. He wants
to do something.
Can't leave.
Right.
And this, we're going to slow it down. It looks like we're slowing it down, but this is going to go. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an epidemiologist, but you usually got to get about half your population infected before you start getting what we call herd immunity, where people don't keep spreading it to each other.
Right.
So, we have to get 150 million people to get this thing in the United States before we stop spreading it rampantly. And we need to have that happen over a year to 2 years.
Right.
I mean, the simple numbers are probably millions of people are going to die from this, but at least it's not tens or hundreds of millions of people, which is where this was going to head if it was anything like the flu was, when it hit its pandemic the first time in the early 1900s.
Right.
So yeah, it's every day. It's a new change, a new who do we test? When do we test? At some point, do we still need to keep testing? Chris, back and forth, like, how many people really think have this? 5 to 10 times as many as we probably know. So if the world numbers are 2 million, maybe it's more like 10 or 20 million have gotten it, which would be great. That means it wouldn't be as deadly as we think it is.
Right.
Because, the Spanish flu, go ahead, Chris.
Well, but the way it's sweeping so quickly, that's the problem. It's the resource utilization and the infectivity, because we don't know what the actual, how infective it is, because we won't know that until we test everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't know if you agree with me, Chris, I think this is at least as contagious as the flu.
Yeah.
And it appears to be maybe twice as deadly. I mean, if you do those simple numbers on just our world population of 8 billion people, so Spanish flu killed 2.5% of our population. That's 200 million people.
Right.
Today. If it was 10 times less infected, that's 20 million. 100 times less infected, that's still 2 million deaths in the next year or two. If it's the flu, and we think this is at least contagious, maybe more deadly.
Jeez.
So that's why we got to slow it down. So this is like I trained in the early and mid 90s when HIV was at its top. AIDS was at killing everybody. And they said then, you're going to know, everyone in the world or everyone in our country is going to know someone who had it. It's going to be the same thing. We're all going to have 1 degree of separation from someone who died from this in the next couple of years. We just got to make sure that we slow it down, that we don't overwhelm the systems like New York, Detroit, and New Orleans are figuring out right now.
Yeah.
Because when you start stacking bodies, that's bad news.
So my question to you guys is this. I mean, and I think, I think a lot of people, want to know, because it's one of the things, like, I mean, again, a lot of people, don't necessarily, I mean, a lot of people, I guess, they go by the what they see on TV or what they read in terms like the media. They don't necessarily have the opportunity and or the resources to really kind of dive into it. I'm lucky because I have Chris at my disposal, and I feel like I'll get a I'll get an article here and there that like to help educate myself. So I appreciate you for that, Chris. But the question I do have for you guys is, I mean, if I mean, obviously, I mean, it's some people are going to die. A lot of people are going to die from this. If and I guess in a perfect scenario where they're like not all the beds are taken and not all the resources are taken and not all the doctors and medical professionals are put under crazy strain, and you were to to get this virus, and you have all the symptoms, and you're going through the whole thing. You go to a hospital. You know Is a person able to survive? I mean, obviously, people are surviving from it. People are being discharged and all that good stuff. But I mean, the average person that walks in are what are their chances of actually surviving this thing? And I'm not talking about like the rates and everything else, but what are their chances of surviving if being able to be given the proper care?
Good. I mean, they're good. The average person is likely to survive. So it's not all doom and gloom, like I said.
Right.
The average person.
I guess that's what I was trying to get at. Is it's not all? Yeah.
So the average person is going to survive.
Right.
So that's the good news. Okay. So the issue is just that the death rate is higher than what we are used to.
Right.
And the thing is, this virus is kind of weird. So what we're starting to learn is that initially it was being treated as all ARDS. So ARDS is a thing where basically, what's the best way to explain this? Like kind of like you drown in your fluids. I guess is maybe a good way.
Okay.
And so not a lot of things do that, but really bad pneumonia can often do that.
Okay.
But then, so actually, as it turns out, the people that get really sick from it, that's like one type of what's happening. And so there's another type of folks that are getting really sick with it that we're starting to learn have what's called happy hypoxia. So hypoxia is low oxygen.
Right.
So it's a really weird thing. And so people are coming in with oxygen levels of like 50%. That's real.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking and breathing, and they're not labored breathing.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. How are you? The only time that I've really ever seen patients that come in with a low oxygen level like that aren't like basically dead.
Right.
It's things that mess with your hemoglobin. It's like carbon monoxide.
Right.
I don't know. Can you think of other examples?
Cyanide.
Cyanide. But cyanide's a thing that'll kill you instantly if you don't fix it.
Right.
So this is a really weird thing. So but it's also they're acting kind of like high altitude pulmonary edema. So like altitude sickness.
Yeah.
So that happy hypoxias are kind of acting like that. And so we're starting to learn that maybe the happy hypoxias, we don't need to put on life support right away.
Right.
Like if we can get them a ton of oxygen, and actually what they figured out I think this started to really get popular in New York, is that if you put them on their belly and give them a ton of oxygen, while they get more oxygen to their lungs.
I've seen some of that.
Yeah, it's starting to work a little bit.
Yeah, we started treating them like pediatric patients with just high flow nasal cannula oxygen instead of putting them on ventilators and masks. And now we're actually developed some virtual hospitals where we're sending people home with emergency oxygen just to stay at home because you have it and you're just hypoxic. So we're just going to leave you at home and let someone check in on you every day to make sure you're still doing well, as long as we can get oxygen to your home.
And
wow. Yeah.
Now like a online hospital we're using.
Yeah. And avoiding a ventilator, right? Because normally, like if this were a different circumstance and I would walk in and see a patient with an oxygen level of like 50% and be like, ventilator, no question. But this thing is like, it's true. You walk in there,
so like unique.
And still talking.
Yeah.
It's making us think outside the box. That's for sure.
Yeah, and for your case, LS, this seems to be selectively worse for African Americans and for people of Mediterranean descent because that population, because of thalassemia and
Mm-hmm.
sickle cell and
Sickle cell,
trait,
yeah.
don't do as well with hypoxia.
Right.
And hemoglobin disease.
Yep.
There's
And they get hemoglobin issues, which is more the Mediterranean people.
Mm-hmm.
So African Americans and a lot of the, Italians, how they got busted up by this pretty bad.
Right.
Those things that those hemoglobin disorders that selectively kept you alive centuries ago, protected you, now make it really bad for hypoxia and hemoglobin problems. And so we have to be very culturally biased at times on who you can. You're like, what diseases do you have? Why do we treat differently?
Right.
Race and genetic.
Yeah, man. So it's obviously it's important to know your family medical history. That's for sure, especially times like this. So I mean, and again, I mean, I'm I can say I'm one of the fortunate ones. As far as a lot of the guys I grew up with. I mean, because I know my family, medical history, to the T. But at the same time, I mean, it's just I know that I'm one of few that I know of that that actually know that. I mean, because a lot of people don't know their family medical history. A lot of people, period. Let's be honest. A lot of people, period, do not know their family medical history. And so if and when you are faced with something like this, and you are asked, well, do you have a history of this, or does your family have a history of this, and you don't know? I mean, again, I guess my question to you guys is it almost like throwing darts in the dark, trying to figure out like what are the proper procedures going to be for this particular person, because we do not know their family medical history, or you almost have to base it off of basically what's in front of you right then and there.
Yeah, you base it off of what's in front of you right there.
Well, I'll tell you, LS, that most people don't know their family medical history. In our age group, the 40 and unders, most of us don't know our own medical history because we don't go to the hospital ever unless you're dying. And no one goes and gets their primary checkups. No one knows that they have undiagnosed hypertension and diabetes and all these other problems, and they're just not doing anything about it. So they show up like, hey, yep, you might have COVID because you got a sniffle and a cough, but your blood pressure's 200 over 120. This might be the COVID that saved your life.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you on blood pressure medicine, and you're not going to have a stroke in a year.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to kind of direct, I guess, this next little part, man, before I let you fellows go, just toward the athletes right now, toward the people that, I mean, they have their home gyms and all that stuff, and they may be still going to the gym and all of that. Like, I know, again, I kind of said, just kind of joking around, like a lot of us, a lot of athletes, a lot of people that lift, a lot of people that, that are pretty active, a lot of times you feel like you're bulletproof, which could not be further, from the truth. You're not bulletproof in any form or fashion. Just here recently, I guess, because I think for the most part, everyone's like, well, I train, I lift, I work out however, many hours a day. Doesn't that help my immune system? But there are also the studies on the other side, that do show, there is I guess a partial breakdown of the immune system once you get past the point of, once you push your body past the limit. How much is that, really, come into play in terms of like where we're at? I'm trying to make the question, I guess, make sense. How much does that kind of come into play in terms of, the physical breakdown? Does that stress the immune system out more than people actually know? Or, I mean, is that something that we really shouldn't concern ourselves with?
Well, it is a thing. I mean, marathon runners is a classic example of how they have decreased immunity when they're, high stress training and they're close to a race. So, I mean, it would make sense that for lifters too, if you're close to a race and you're cutting weight, that your immunity goes in the toilet.
Right.
So in a way, this, with all the meets being canceled, this is probably a blessing.
Right. A forced off season, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. It's a forced off season, right? So it's going to protect at least some of our athletes.
Right.
Because if you're not having a meet, you're not cutting weight, you don't have high training stress. So your immunity is going to be closer to what your baseline immunity is.
Right.
So that's a good thing. And the other thing is, I've seen on some Facebook groups that people are still talking about dieting and stuff, right? I'm like, no. No, this is the worst part. The worst time to do dieting. So I would say for the athletes out there, do like while this is going on, just do like maintenance level lifting.
Right.
You know, maybe push it a little bit, but don't go nuts like where you're peaking.
Right.
You know, as far as dieting, do like maintenance, or hell, maybe this would be a good time to have, bulking
Yeah.
calories, maybe, gain a little weight,
Right.
boost your immunity a little bit, stop smoking, drink less, that kind of stuff. So just try to be at like kind of your normal homeostasis level,
Right.
maybe even a little bit more so on the calorie side,
Right.
maybe a little bit less so on the training side, but don't stop training, obviously, if you
Right.
can.
Right. And I see a lot of people out there with home gyms, and like we have people who are outside of our home who lift with us.
Right.
How do that decision
Mm-hmm.
group? I mean, without naming names, and I will, like Jeff Schneider, he lives with us.
Right.
He lives a mile away, and he lives alone, and he has only contacts with us basically because his job is shut down.
Right.
So there's no reason he shouldn't come lift with us every day and stay healthy and do all the right things.
Exactly. I'm right there with you.
Then we have another lifter, Cindy Amatuzzo, who's 55 and lives in a retirement community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you can't come here.
Yeah.
Because you're exposed to me every day. Me and Chris are like the nidus of infection, right? We're the ones who are going to bring it home to our families and to our friends. And so you can't go and get your whole retirement community sick because you got exposed to me.
Right. Yeah. So similar story. So when the gyms shut down in the state, I had a bunch of guys reach out to me. And so Irvin Gaynor, this is way throwback. Do you guys know who Irvin Gaynor is?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Don, I'm sure you do. Ellis, do you know?
I know the name.
He's an American dude.
Right.
About Jonathan's age. He's a multi-time equipped world champion. He reached out to me because his son was out of school, and gyms are shut down, and hey, can you lift there? Can we lift with you? I was like, well, it's probably okay. And that lasted for about a week. And then the governor issued the stay-at-home orders. And I'm like, look, guys, I'm an ER doc. I'm going to get you guys sick.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody's going to get sick, I think we need to shut this down. So, I mean, it was awesome to train with him again because I hadn't trained with him for 10 years. And he's like a good dude, and he's a technician for sure. So it was like, I was getting some deadlift tips again. And then I was like, guys, I think we gotta shut this down.
Yeah.
I think you got to look at what I told Jeff and my other lifting partner. One of my lifting partners owns a Chick-fil-A, and he's like, I'm out. He goes, I can't come here because there's no way I can infect my staff and the community. Not taking it home to.
Right.
Who are those people taking it home to?
Exactly.
If there's elderly people, if there's cancer patients, kidney disease patients, you have to stay away and train in your own basement until this kind of gets a little bit better.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I had a couple guys come in, and one of my guys he reached out, like, yeah, coach, he's like, I want to get your opinion on it, and he's like, well, I'm a butcher. I'm like, okay. And he goes, I'm exposed to a lot of people. I'm like, yeah. He's like, and I just don't know if it's if it's worth me coming. I don't want to get anybody sick. I was like, well, how about this? If the shoe were on the other foot, if I were a butcher coming to your home, how would you feel? I don't know that I would want you to come. I was like, well, that's your answer. So I mean, and it's not necessarily a case by case thing, but it really is. It's a person by person thing. And like, what are you doing? How's your living situation? And so the people that the people that come to my home, like, I literally need to know, most of them don't even have a job anymore. And like, all right, well, I feel, you feel bad because you have to tell a person to their face, like, you cannot come. You know what I mean? And for me, the hardest part is they all have to either text or message me, hey, is it okay if I come? This is a daily thing. Is it okay if I come? And there's been some days like, you know what, no one can come. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And I will literally go in that garage and I will sanitize the thing from top to bottom. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where, everyone could be, as clean as fresh snow. But for me, my thing is I'd rather be safe than sorry, number one. And number two, it's not about everyone getting these huge gains, like you said, Chris. It's about their maintenance and, and just making sure that, that they stay healthy. It's just, these are, not only are they hard times on a lot of people, but again, these are, for lack of a better term, these are very uncomfortable times for people. there's, for those that aren't on the front lines, for those that don't see, what don't see what you fellas see and don't have to deal with what you fellas have to deal with. For the rest of us that are on the outside, it's very uncomfortable because we're having to do things that we never had to do before, that we're not used to doing. Therefore, while you may not like it, and it may not be anything super bad, it's very uncomfortable because you're used to being able to go to the store and see toilet paper on the shelf and being able to get it and walk away. You're used to being able to, you know what I mean? Something as simple as you're used to being able to go and get ground beef and not have to stand in line, 5 and 6 and 7 feet behind another person. It's, you're used to being able to be, I guess, early 2020, late 2019 human being, just being able to do kind of what you wanted to do, and really not being aware or really having to consider, I guess, everybody else around you. Now it's just causing people to be a bit more considerate for themselves and for other people around them, which is not a bad thing, and while it may not be the exact same way when everything's all said and done, if this doesn't affect people in the most positive way, I'm telling you right now, we don't deserve to be alive. And that's how I feel. You do not deserve to be alive.
I get you.
Like if after all this is said and done, you don't think about, what, man, maybe I should, maybe I should watch my hands a little bit more, or maybe I should be a little more considerate of this elderly person. You know what I mean? Because their bodies are kind of taxed. Or maybe I should be just a little bit smarter of how I operate, or how I, just little things here and there that we took for granted, say 4 months ago, that we're really having to take into consideration now. If this doesn't affect how you live your life in the most positive way, then again, natural selection, my friend. I just really feel like there's an opportunity for us to have our finest hour as human beings. There's an opportunity for us to really, really strap it up, and just educate ourselves a lot more on the situation and not be, an armchair doctor, and not be a keyboard doctor, and really, take the opportunity to read on the facts and, seek out people that know what they're doing, number one, and have been involved with it like you guys are. And, it's a lot easier, when you have the information. And I think one of the biggest difference between, gentlemen like yourselves and the rest of us is that you have the information. And you see it on a daily basis, and you're in contact with people that are a part of this. And so, while some of the information can come as a surprise, you still have the information, and you still make that conscious decision to go to work. You still make that decision, like, do I want to go help? Do I want to, go above beyond what I'm already doing? Am I able to make that hard decision? Because most of us are never, damn near all of us are never going to have to make that decision. Whereas you guys have to make those decisions on a daily basis. Honestly, I can't imagine what it would be like, being in a position where I could be exposed to this on a daily basis, and, having to come home to a family, or having to make that decision. Like, there's going to be a decision, there's going to be a point in time where I might not be able to see my family. Like, those are things that, that I know mentally, I don't know that I can actually, I don't know, like, I can handle that part, And so I guess, again, Chris, I feel like you hung the moon, you know what I mean? And Donovan, you're like, you're my Phil Jackson of of medical lifters. I just feel like you guys you do stuff that
really, Phil Jackson, that's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
He's not.
He is basically the Phil Jackson VOCPL. I'll give you that, man. Like, he's pretty good at your corner.
And I just feel like you guys, you give so much to a sport already, you know what I mean? And then, of course, your livelihoods and what you literally give to the human race, you know what I mean? And I don't know, man. It's just, I know decisions have to be made on a daily basis that I don't know that not every person could do. I don't know, man. Having that information, I think. Go ahead.
We're all in this together, right?
I
mean, God bless the grocery store workers right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have to do a better job at thinking of other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what early on. The one thing that showed is how much are not thinking of others. You know,
Oh yeah.
no one's going to the bathroom more. Why is there less toilet paper? Because people are hoarding it. Like,
Exactly.
there's no reason to do
Delicious
it. And
toilet paper that I'm eating. Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've yet to purchase any since this all started,
Yeah.
because how often, I mean, you don't go through it that fast, you
No.
know, and so we have to think of other people. And if anything, like you said, LS comes out of this, maybe we'll have a better appreciation for the guy next door and do something for someone else.
Oh yeah.
I
Without a
think
doubt.
there are definitely two camps that are emerging, and it's becoming very clear that some people are for sure thinking of others.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
And there's definitely another camp of people that are definitely not thinking of others. And it's really it's making it very apparent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when it's all said and done, when this, you know, I mean, I say it all the time, people don't forget. People do not forget. And I mean, you can say what you want, you can do what you want. Present time, if you choose to be a selfish person, then fine. You be that selfish person. If you choose to be that selfless person, then by all means, you be that selfless person. But when it's all said and done, people do not forget. They don't forget, you know, they don't forget how you treated them. They don't forget how you made them feel. They don't forget your businesses. They don't forget your services. But I mean, again, they can either they're going to remember you or they're going to forget you. And by that I mean, you know, the businesses that chose to give people a break, the services that chose to give people a break, the people that were able to give people breaks that chose to do it and did it. People don't forget that type of stuff. I'm a product of that. I'm a product of people, you know, giving me a break here and there and giving me a chance to survive here and there. And I never forgot those people. And and I feel like that's going to be echoed over and over and over. There's a lot of businesses, you know, local businesses that are small businesses that chose to shut their doors down, or that chose to you know, to I guess shrink as much as they could to operate their businesses, and they still kept giving people breaks. And as a result, so many people keep going back to these businesses to make sure that they keep their lights on. You know, where on the other side of the coin, you see, you know, businesses that they're price gouging, and you know, there's a Mexican restaurant here in town that's literally selling rolls of toilet paper for $6 a roll. But what are you doing? Yes, and I just, in my heart of hearts, I hope it's just because they need the money. And I mean, and maybe that's the way that they feel like, you know, I mean, we can you know, make a profit here and there. But you know, I just feel like, for me personally, I know that restaurant, and I know how I am, and I think, Chris, I know you know how petty I can be sometimes, and I that business is going to go on a list of businesses that I know for a fact, you know, that price gouged. And I mean, I have no problem saying.
There's
Go ahead.
I was reading I was sorry, I was reading an economic article, and basically this guy was talking about how businesses act right now is going to echo for 100 years.
Oh, without a doubt.
How they behave toward their customers and their employees is going to echo. I mean, because it will be remembered right now, right?
Yep.
And there's definitely some businesses that are getting it right and some aren't.
Oh
You
yeah.
know? But I during this time, things will definitely be remembered.
Oh yeah,
That's for
without a
sure.
doubt. I mean, and so I think with you know, and again, that's gonna, like I said, I applaud both of you guys, man, because again, you know, like I said, people are gonna remember. I mean, and I mean, definitely. I mean, I'll remember this conversation, and the people that have an opportunity to listen and watch this, I mean, they're definitely gonna remember this. Real quick, I'm gonna ask you guys both a couple questions, and I'll let you guys go. But a big thing that I want to know, that I mean, and I'm sure you guys have run into it more than you want to admit. But what are some of the what are a few of the common I guess, oh my gosh, because there's so much misinformation out there. What are a few of the biggest pieces of misinformation that you guys have run into concerning this particular virus?
I, I'll start. This isn't going away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start with that. So Donovan alluded to this earlier. So the two things that we need, one of two or both, are going to be a vaccine or herd immunity.
Right.
And to get that, we're about a year and a half away.
Right.
Bill Gates has done a lot of the financing for the vaccine is
Right. Right.
And so his estimate is probably about 16 more months away from a vaccine.
Right.
And then you're talking about everybody getting the vaccine
Mm-hmm.
and then that taking time to work. So we're talking about probably 18 months. And that's if we get a vaccine. And
Right.
So
Convincing people you won't get the disease from the vaccine.
yeah, right. And so I mean, we're looking at a year and a half of this thing looming over our heads.
Right.
So it's just, I think that we need to hunker down and accept it.
This is life.
Be good to each other and be just cautious and safe as much as we can. This conversation just, it came up because in my family, there's mostly non-medical people besides my wife, and, you know, my wife's pregnant now. Right. So it's like, so the question came up, you know, and is Chris in hell, get a basement going on? And I was like, well, it's, I mean, I don't think my pregnant wife wants me away from her for a year and a half,
right?
Especially after the baby's here, because this isn't going away for about a year and a half.
Right.
So there's this. Yes, I am, you know, ground zero for being first person to be infected.
Right.
And there's also my wife's pregnant, and we're gonna have a newborn, and there's logistical problems there too.
Yeah.
And so you know, I guess my problem is just a microcosm of everybody else's problems that they're going to experience, right?
Right.
So the bottom line is that this is not going to go away anytime soon. So that's the biggest thing that I think that I would like people to understand is this is a new reality. We need to be safe. We need to be cautious, and we need to think of everybody else.
Yeah, I think that they're going to open up the country, the state, the world in some order. And that's not going to make this go away. There's going to be hot spots that are going to pop up over the next year or two.
Oh, yeah.
Where all of a sudden, name the city is going to be in disaster plan again. And so we're going to see that. And so maybe that area shuts down a little bit. And we have to be very cognizant of that. The other one is the myth, you know, like, oh, car crashes kill more people than this virus. Like, yeah, but they die on the road. They don't come in and clog up the hospitals and keep other people who need medical care from getting medical care. And I think that's what people don't understand. Oh, it's not a big deal. Car crashes kill more people, but they're not coming in and taking all of our ICU beds.
True story.
And so people who go on ventilators with this disease are on them for 10 days to 2 weeks.
Whew.
People who normally go on a ventilator are on them from 2 to 3 days.
Right.
So not only are they using them more, they're using them 10 times longer, you know. They're going to up going away for sure.
Yeah. Shoot. Man. Okay, and this is here's a question. I mean, because I'm glad that I looked at my phone. He actually just sent me this. The question is actually, it's a pretty good question. If you were to get the disease, and be discharged, could you get it again?
Oh man, that's a complicated one that I don't think we have a good answer for yet. I think probably answer no. Because that's kind of not how immunity works. I mean, there's these stories popping up of, like, an article just came up with South Korea and people are testing positive again for virus. Well, there's also data to show I was looking at a Chinese study that if you don't have symptoms, the false positive rate of virus test is like 50%. So basically, if you don't have symptoms, the test is kind of a useless test.
Right.
So I wonder how many people in that, because there's a South Korea article that's circulating around. I wonder how many people in that South Korea article don't have symptoms and they have a false positive test.
Yeah.
So I don't have an excellent answer for you, but my understanding is, you know, most of the time when you get something, you know, and you get over it, and then your body has the immunity,
right,
and you're over it, and then it's sick again, then it's like something else.
Right. Immunity says you shouldn't be able to get this again unless we develop another novel coronavirus in a year or two, like this isn't the first one, right? This is the third one
Right.
in the last 5 years.
Right.
This is just the one that, went rampant. Wasn't really contained as it's contained the other two were. So you shouldn't be able to. There's going to be some very small percentage, less than 1% of people who don't build immunity to it somehow and get it again. Like there's always that story of the guy who got chickenpox twice.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hold a lot of water usually.
Oh man, that's crazy, man. Oh man, my mind is blown yet again. Chris, now you got me about to dive in more articles. Appreciate it. Fellas, I cannot thank you enough. This is huge, man. I'm gonna make sure I edit this and get this out to the people as much as possible. Between the internet cutting in and out, and it's weird. I feel like I feel like it is when us all hit. I feel like everything just kind of started doing this. I mean, from services to everything else, and I mean, I tried to make sure that I was able to get you guys and all the good points you guys had throughout the internet cutting in and out. But you may get a call back from me like, hey, could you explain this a little bit more? And I might add it a little here and there, but I'm going to try to get this out to people ASAP. This might be, honestly, I might drop this tomorrow. You know what I mean? And I think people need to hear it, number one. And two,
sooner the better.
Yeah, I think people need to understand that this isn't something to play around with. While I think the coolest point that both you kind of echoed of one another is, I mean, if we get to the point where people are taking care of people and we're considering our fellow man a lot more than we have in the past, I think we're off to a really good start. Obviously, with hopefully the trend of the numbers continuing to decline. Hopefully that trend continues. And hopefully we can revisit this 18 to 24 months from now and talk about, hey, remember that time that the COVID-19 went rampant. Like that'd be an awesome follow up to all of this. But I do, from the bottom of my heart, thank both of you so very much. Again, Chris, I can't thank you enough for arranging this and putting this together. I will make sure that I have both of y'all's social medias and all that stuff up there. If people have questions for you guys, is there any specific way they can reach you to?
Yeah, I'm at Huntsy08 on Instagram.
Jennifer Thompson's husband. It's easy.
All right, done and done. Guys, thank you again. If you have anything, else that you want to talk about, you can always reach out to me, man. Honestly, we can make this a monthly thing if you want. If you guys want, this can definitely be something that we can talk about in the future. I thank you again from the bottom of my heart. If you need anything, you know where I'm at. Ladies and gentlemen, Donovan Thompson, and of course, Mr. Chris Hunt. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
All right, man. See you.
Thanks, guys.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for listening to The Corner of the Circle, for watching the YouTubes and listening to all the different podcasts and all that good stuff. Want to let you guys know, also do some coaching. You can go to ellismcclain.com, and it will lead you right to where you need to go as far as filling out an inquiry and all that good stuff. And also, if you want, apparel needs and all that good stuff, we got swag. ellismcclain.com. Again, thank you so very much for everything you guys are doing for us, man, and helping us grow and all the good stuff. Like I said, stay tuned. We got more stuff coming, more episodes coming, more content coming. Either way, a lot of stuff's coming. Thank you guys very, very much.